The only difference between your internet station and the big FM down the block is, well, of course, hundreds of thousands of dollars. They've got a ton of money to throw at any problem, so I mean, why even bother competing? Pull the plug and go take up gardening. Oh, come on, I wouldn't do you like that. No. I'm Jeff, the radio DJ dude, and I'm all about providing you with ideas to make your station sound bigger and potentially even better than the bigger guy down the street. Now, one thing they do pretty well, but not all the time, is incorporate listener voices, listener interaction on the air. And I really think that is key to achieving a really big-time pro sound. But I hear you. You run an internet station and there's just no way to get a listener's voice on the air. What? Well, maybe yesterday there wasn't, but I have got some cool ideas to bring your listeners onto your station. This is great for local stations that serve a particular community, or if you run a music-based station, I mean, come on, nothing's gonna add a little more pep and zip and zap like including listener interaction. And lucky you, I've got 5 cool ideas to pull this off. So call now and take the listener challenge.
We are on the air.
2 things. 1, feel free to nominate me for a Webby Award for most obnoxious YouTube introduction. I'm fine with that. And number 2, a while back I did a video giving you tips on how to add some pizzazz to your voice tracks by using phoners. However, in this video, we're going to be tackling more standalone segments that feature listener voices. Okay, enough disclaimers. First up, the tried and true public service announcement. These have been a mainstay throughout radio's history. But maybe instead of you or one of your announcers recording these, you encourage the community to call in and record their own. This is great for soliciting community involvement. It really shows that you're committed and you care about the community that you serve. And you can encourage nonprofits to call in and record little messages about their upcoming events or fundraisers. First, allow me to tickle your earlobes, then we'll dive deeper into the workings of this bit. Here's a listener-presented public service announcement.
Community Bulletin Board.
Hi, this is Mark from the Citywide Food Bank. This weekend is our semi-annual food drive. Come on down to the drive-in and support your neighbors in need. Thank you.
Always at your service.
XXX 80s.
So dissecting that, I have the Community Bulletin Board bed, and Voice Tracks have created a subcategory called Listener PSAs, and there's the food drive voiceover. Then we tag out the segment with the Always at Your Service jingle, and back to the music. Diving deeper, when we inspect the track, here's the Community Bulletin Board. Right when it hits the next start point, that's when it triggers the voiceover. And if you look at the waveform, you'll see the intro to the jingle is much louder than the music bed. So when you're producing these production elements, you want to make sure to dip the music low enough so it's not competing with the voiceover. Something else that affects the levels are your overlay settings. So for example, in the listener PSA track, I have overlay file selected, so it'll then play over that music bed and then trigger the next element in the chain, which is the XXX80's Always at Your Service jingle. Part of the wonderful flexibility of RadioDJ, if you go to the sound devices settings, set the song volume to 5 when playing overlay files. So that VO PSA food drive is an overlay file, so it's going to dip the Community Bulletin Board jingle/donut bed down to 5 when it's playing. You need to set your levels accordingly. The beauty of this is you just keep adding PSAs to this folder. Then it'll cycle through them based on your rotation rules. That's something you want to be mindful of, especially with PSAs and event voiceovers. Start and end dates, because if you know an event is coming up on a specific day, it doesn't make any sense to keep running this voiceover a day after the event. That sounds really rinky-dink. So make sure to set your start and end dates on time-based voiceovers, or PSAs. Before you wander down this bumpy path, I definitely advise you to set up some categories. Set yourself up for organizational success. So under categories, I've created a main category called PSA, Public Service Announcement. Within that, I have subcategories of feature PSA, and I'm just saying that's the jingle and music bed. And then my outro jingle or sweeper element is jingle PSA. That's one piece of the puzzle. Over in voice tracks, see how I have a number of subcategories? I have listener-generated PSAs, listener-generated events, and others, which we'll get to. That's also ideal if you're running your radio station with rotations, because now you could set this up to say jingle, PSA, and then you want to load a voice track called listener PSA, and then your outro jingle element. So that's great. Now you've automated the process within a rotation. Next up, and a close cousin to public service announcements, are community events. Yes, your listeners can promote cool things that are coming up in the community. So I will delight you with 2 community event dealios. First up, let's promote a thrilling stage production at the local high school.
What's going on?
Hi, this is Jenny from Washington High School. Don't forget, the theater department is debuting Grease, the musical, this Friday night at 7. Make sure to get your tickets today.
The place to be.
Triple X 80s.
Do you have chills? Well, are they multiplying? Well, you're definitely in the right spot, because we got one more community event to hit you with.
Here's what's happening.
Dust off those bell bottoms and shake your groove thing this Saturday night at Neon Lights Bar. The KC and the Sunshine Tribute Band, Always Sunny, takes the stage at 9. Party on.
The place to be.
Triple X 80s.
Give it up, but only somewhat. For that one, you may have noticed the voiceover levels were way too hot. She was coming in strong. And that's a perfect example why you want to do some audio processing before you bring these in. Granted, I did process all these voiceover cues. I added some compression and some EQ to really make them stand out from the mix. And that's really key. At a minimum, you should be adding some compression. Okay, let me put the needle on the broken record right here. I've said it before. I really think putting listeners on the air is really magical. It's captivating. Listeners lean in when they hear other voices of people that could be them, other listeners that sound like them. When they hear that kind of participation, it encourages more participation. I remember when I was on the real radio back in the day, whenever I'd air a listener phone call, bling, like Christmas, the phone lines would light up. Everyone wanted to be on the air once they heard that it was possible to be on the air. So I've even had a lot of comments about my little rinky-dink all 80s station called Triple X 80s. People have commented about all the little phone bits that I run, I infuse into my content. They said it really gives the station a live feel, which, spoiler, there's really nothing live about it. I'm never live on the air. Triple X 80s runs purely on rotations within the RadioDJ software. So that's quite a testimony to the power of listener interaction. So I really urge you to try to find a way to get callers on the air. But I get it, you're an internet station and you probably don't have like live callers waiting to call in. That's why you have to get creative with kind of the mechanisms to capture these listener interactions. Triple X 80s with me, Chairman Jeff Scott. In a previous video about tips for creating better voice tracks, I talk about some ways to pull this off. If you want to watch that, boom, bang, bing, up to the right, there's the link.
All right, that's great.
But I will give you a couple ideas on how to make this work right now. One option is using Google Voice. And I just checked, not only is Google Voice available in the United States, but in select European countries, Google will give you your own phone number that allows you to take calls and record voicemails. That's key. You can have your listeners call this number and record their messages that maybe eventually will end up on your air. The other solution, which I use on XXX80s, is web-based. Using a service called SpeakPipe, which is absolutely free, it allows my listeners to record short messages through my station's website. So they just click this little tab right here, and then boom, they could record anything they want. For internet stations, I think this web-driven solution is perfect. And you may want to consider having different web pages for each, let's say, campaign. Maybe you have one page that just solicits public service announcements with a sample script right there on the page, so that kind of helps cue your listeners on the type of recordings they should be submitting. And you tell them it can't go over 15 seconds, and you give them a little template, a sample script on how they should prepare their content. Maybe another page you have, community events and how people could record those little promos. The options are plentiful, as are my cool ideas for bringing listeners onto your station. And I've got a couple more to go, so let's jump back into the idea machine. Number 3, the shameless promotional tool known as Station Shouts. Encourage your listeners to call in and just pour out the heart, tell you why they love you, and then milk that to death on the air. These listener shouts are a lot of fun, and I definitely have a number of elements I want to share with you. But first, put your ear on the bit.
Where your friends are.
Well, look who's calling.
Hi, it's Tim over in the UK, listening near London. Loving the ZZ Top this evening. Congratulations on a great station and a brilliant website.
Leave your message at XXX80s.com.
I have 3 different intro sounders for this bit, which I think is important. If you're going to run the same bit a couple times a day, it's smart to produce a variety of openers. So it's not always the same thing. And the way I have these set up, the opening stager jingle triggers an event, the What Say You event, which is great for when you're programming this into rotation because it's all-in-one programming. So when we look at the actual event, what it's doing is automatically loading the voiceover file and then the outro jingle, all in one, which you'll see when I hit play.
Always at your service.
Hey, Johnny here, calling from Sydney, Australia. Oh yeah, we've got you banging all the way over here. Love the 80s sound. Keep it going, Jeff.
Leave your message at XXX80s.com.
Number 4, sticking with that love vibe. Maybe you do a request and dedication show. Maybe you just want to roll some dedications before maybe slower love theme songs. Well, there's no better way to invite listeners to chime in than with a radio dedication. And who could resist baring their soul, pouring their heart out to their loved one who lives across town? Nothing lights the fire under listener participation quite like dedications. Before I hit play, it's recommended that you definitely run that cold shower because it's gonna get steamy, baby.
Love songs. Hey there, this is Sam listening out in Chatsworth. I wanted to play this song for my girlfriend Jennifer. We're coming up on our 2-year anniversary, and I just want to say, sweetie, I couldn't imagine these past 2 years without you. You're a true gift. I love you, sweetie.
XXX80s.
Full disclosure, I don't run a lot of these features that I'm playing for you on my station, XXX80s. I created some of the elements just for this tutorial, like that dedication bit. But I gotta say, after hearing it, that sounded pretty tight. I may want to find a way to slip that into the rotation, because that was really sweet. And it got me tearing up. It's a beautiful dedication, Sam. That's even your real name, if you're even a real human. Another spoiler, all the voices you've heard so far, are you ready for this? Haven't been human. They've all, except for one listener shout was human. The rest have been AI generated. Wow, right? Those are scarily good. And the dealio is this: when you launch your listener interaction initiative, well, your listener pot is going to be pretty empty. You're just not going to have a lot of voices. So you're going to need to prime that pump. Get listeners excited to participate. And the best way to do that is when they hear voices that sound like them on your station. When listeners perceive that, you are taking calls and you do welcome participation, they'll jump in. So it's robo voices to the rescue, at least initially. Once you bank enough of your own real listener voices and calls, then you're done with the AI voices. But with the big proviso, you have to prioritize quality. These can't be junk voices. They have to at least sound pretty real. And lately, my favorite site to pull this off is Elevenlabs. I think their quality is unmatched, and their speech-to-speech technology is pretty awesome. And if you follow my guidelines, which I laid out in this older video about AI voiceover generation, right up there to the right, you could set yourself up for success. Now, keep in mind when you watch that video, it was done a while back. The technology isn't where it is today, and some of the voices you hear early on in that video aren't as good as the ones later in the video. And for number 5, we're going to have some fun. What about a joke of the day? Listeners love to tell jokes, and if they could brag to their friends and family around town that their joke's actually on your radio station, well, even better. And psst, maybe all their friends and family are now going to tune in to hear their dopey joke. Well, this is another way to do that. I have to admit, sometimes I get inspired by some of these generic jingle packages that I have. And there happened to be a track that was a shout. The singers just shouted lame jokes in history. And I thought, hey, that's a bit right there.
Lame jokes in history.
Hey, this is Lewis from Santa Monica. A police officer attempts to stop a car for speeding, and the guy gradually increases his speed until he's going about 100 miles an hour. The man eventually realizes he can't escape and finally pulls over. So the cop approaches the car and says, "Hey, buddy, it's been a long day and my shift is almost over. So if you can give me a good excuse for your behavior, I'll let you go." The guy thinks for a couple seconds and then says, well, my wife ran away with a cop about a week ago, and I thought you might be that officer trying to give her back.
Triple X 80s.
Thank God my wife doesn't listen to this channel. I love that. That's fun. Imagine if you had kind of a folder full of those jokes you could rotate throughout the day. That's good stuff. Puts a smile on your listener's face. I really hope you take 1 or 3 of these ideas for a joyride, because I think infusing your station with listeners' voices will just take it to another level. It's going to give you a live sound that really is missing from most internet radio stations. Okay. If you do this, tell me about it right down there in the comments. If you have ideas for future videos you'd like Jeff, that's me, the radio DJ dude, to embark on, well, type them below. Thank you for your time, and until our next little radio rodeo, please just do one thing for me. Keep rocking those mics all over the world.